Welcome, race fans, to Pit Stop TV. We're just joining you live from Sebring International Raceway momentarily. Join us now, though, for a special pre-race remembrance service, a welcome message from Operation Motorsport co-founders Diesel and Tiffany Lauder.
Welcome to the 2020 Recaro 6-Hour iRace of Remembrance. All of us at Operation Motorsport hope that you, your friends and families are managing through this challenging time.
Throughout this difficult year, our beneficiaries have faced an increased mental health risk due to isolation and the devastating effects that can have on transitioning service members and veterans.
Our team at OPMO was able to recognize the immediate needs and pivot into the Operation eMotorsport Racing League. Through these weekly virtual races and Zoom happy hours, we were able to keep in touch, share some laughs, and be there for our beneficiaries.
As we near the end of the 2020 season, we are saddened that we are not returning to Wales to compete in the Mission Motorsport 12-Hour Race of Remembrance at Anglesey Circuit.
As with military operations, we have a plan B. If we cannot come together in one place to remember, honor, and race, let's come together in one virtual space. This race will have a unique feature where we will start the race with a virtual pre-race remembrance service, honoring those who have served and sacrificed for their country.
Join us as Leonard Cohen reads In Flanders Fields, followed by a reading by Greer Martin, a playing of The Last Post, a minute of silence, playing of Reveille, laying the wreaths, and personal messages. And then we go iRacing.
The focus of this event is to remember and honor service. But let's not forget that Operation Motorsport cannot exist without all of you and your support. So thank you. My final word is a toast to the fallen. To the fallen.
Leonard Cohen reads In Flanders Fields, a war poem in the form of a rondeau, written during the First World War by Canadian physician Lieutenant Colonel John McCrae.
In Flanders fields, the poppies blow, between the crosses row on row that mark our place, and in the sky the larks still bravely singing, fly, scarce heard amid the guns below. We are the dead. Short days ago we lived, felt dawn, saw sunset glow, loved and were loved, and now we lie in Flanders fields. Take up our quarrel with the foe. To you from failing hands we throw the torch. Be yours to hold it high. If ye break faith with us who die, we shall not sleep, though poppies grow in Flanders fields.
Lieutenant Colonel David Greer Martin III, Democratic member of the North Carolina General Assembly.
To everything there is a season, and a time to every purpose under heaven. A time to be born, a time to die, a time to plant, a time to reap, a time to kill, a time to heal, a time to laugh, a time to weep, a time to build up, a time to break down, a time to dance, a time to mourn, a time to cast away stones, a time to gather stones together, a time of love, a time of hate, a time of war, a time of peace, a time you may embrace, a time to refrain from embracing, a time to gain, a time to lose, a time to reap, a time to sow, a time for love, a time for hate, a time for peace.
We will now hear the last post. Please stand and join us as we observe a minute of silence to honor the courage, valor, and sacrifice of the heroes who have served and continue to serve during times of war and conflict. We will now have the laying of the wreaths and personal messages.
In honor and in memory of my friend, fellow paratrooper, and teammate, Sergeant Chris Karajanis, killed in action June 20th, 2007, outside of Kandahar, Afghanistan. Eternal blue skies and gentle winds.
Sergeant Andrew Dorian, Afghanistan veteran, Canadian Special Operations Regiment, operator. Killed in action, Iraq, 06 March 2015. We will remember.
Last year I struggled quite a bit. It was the first time I've been on a Remembrance Day ceremony in about 10 years. And if it wasn't for the people that I have with me, I probably would never have attended. And this year, I had a year to prepare for the ceremony and for the Race of Remembrance, knowing what was ahead. And this year was the first year I actually put my medals back on, the first year that I wore my beret again. And again, it was my family that helped me through it.
Master Corporal Tyson Washburn, Royal Canadian Regiment, Cook. Died 2014, March 15th. One of the 22. We will remember.
Hi, my name is Lynn Friedman, and today I would like to honor Lieutenant Commander Erwin Bernard Templin. Lieutenant Commander Templin gave the ultimate sacrifice during the Vietnam War, where his aircraft and 3 crew members were lost at sea. He was declared MIA. I would like to honor Lieutenant Commander Templin and all of those who have given the ultimate sacrifice and those who are still MIA. Thank you.
On behalf of Recaro Automotive, we'd like to thank those that have served and their families. We know that having the right supportive community, programs, and employment is important for those that need to come together. And in this day of remembrance, we'd like to thank those that have done these supportive elements for all of those communities out there. Together, we are one.
Hi, this is Dina at Redcon Laboratories. We've got a lot of employees who are veterans. My husband is a veteran. We are very proud to honor those who have fought and sacrificed to keep us safe and strong.
Hi, I'm Wayne Estes, President and General Manager of Sebring International Raceway, birthplace of American endurance racing and home of Local 1 12 Hours to Sebring. First of all of us here want to thank you, veterans, for your service to all of our great nations. And we want to thank all of you who come to take part in the iRace Race of Remembrance. Now, let's go racing.
Please welcome our Grand Marshal, retired British Army Major and Mission Motorsport CEO, James Cameron.
Hello, those Operation Motorsport guys and girls from over the other side of the Atlantic. My name's James Cameron. I run Mission Motorsport here in the UK, where I've managed to find a race circuit. I've obviously This is Race of Remembrance that we're talking about. So if you can see these clouds behind me, I am getting absolutely drenched. And I'm standing here on the start-finish straight at Thruxton. Now, normally, of course, we'd all be heading, look at me, heading for the cover. I'm going to disappear into the start-finish box. So normally, of course, we'd be heading for Anglesey this time of year, you know, up overlooking the Irish Sea and welcoming friends from, there you go, look, this is a cool place to be, look. So this pit lane, I think, was basically first built in like 1946 when the Spitfire base, which this was in the Second World War, began life as a civilian airfield and also as a motor racing circuit. So I'm actually here at the pit lane at Thruxton. God, 2020 has been awful. And I think we're all kind of we're just so happy that people are coming together in order to mark Remembrance, because it's incredibly important, I think, that we do so. And where we normally would be coming together with the Up Motorsport characters alongside their Mission Motorsport colleagues over here on this side of the Atlantic, we can't do that, and we're all kind of feeling that, and it's a bit painful. And instead we're not all together in person, and instead we're doing things over Zoom, and we're doing things using iRacing and stuff like that, and we're bringing communities together that way and supporting each other through that way, and that's wonderful. It's fantastic to see. And we're really enjoying watching sort of Up Motorsport's continued successes as you guys are innovating on the other side of the Atlantic, and we're going at it like crazy over here in order to do our best for our people. Which only gives me one thing to say, but I'm going to tell you a very quick story first. So, Representative Greer Martin of North Carolina put together a bunch of stuff, and through USO North Carolina, we had brought a bunch of Brits across who attended the Charlotte 500 at Charlotte Motor Speedway. It was fantastic. Bank of America 500 at Charlotte Motor Speedway. And one of the lads was given the opportunity of being the Grand Marshal. And he was sort of told that with quite a flourish, and he didn't have a clue what being the Grand Marshal was. So we told him that he was the guy who had to sing the national anthem at the start of the race. And he practiced for 48 hours. And of course, nobody knows God Save the Queen beyond the first verse anyway, so we made him learn 5 verses of it, which contains some really obscure stuff about Empire that probably not that relevant anymore. Look at this, the sun's coming out now. God, it's glorious. And bless him, he got more and more nervous as he got towards the actual dais, and he realised that there was a TV audience of millions, and and an awful lot of people there watching it. And it was only at the very last minute that we let on that he didn't actually have to do that. So Carl Boone, he's an amazing bloke. He's still doing really well, a single amputee, ex-Marine soldier, busy building his own cars and stuff up here in northern England. But from Thruxton, and we will be doing our own things on this side of the channel as well, on this side of the Atlantic, sorry. It gives me great pleasure to start your race, and so in traditional style, drivers, start your engines.
Thank you to Operation Motorsport, Diesel and Tiffany Lauder, Sean Knight, and everyone else involved with this amazing project, the iRace of Remembrance. Welcome, race fans, to Pit Stop TV. As usual, we're live on Facebook, YouTube, Twitch, and Twitter this morning, not this evening. I've got Trey Patton and Margaret Beveridge currently joining me in the booth. Trey Shuttlesworth is on social media coverage. I am Andrew Cardinale IV, and this is Pit Stop TV's live coverage of the iRace of Remembrance. We join you this morning from the virtual Sebring, Florida, for what is going to be an amazing 6-hour event. That's the first time we've gotten to say that. We've had a few races that have gone for quite a while, a few broadcasts that have gone for quite a while, but 6 hours is going to be certainly a challenge, both for us in the booth, but mostly for the drivers on the racetrack. And of course, this is Remembrance Sunday. I know that's mostly observed overseas as opposed to here in the United States of America, but we have Veterans Day this week. That is why this event, of course, is being held today, Sunday, November the 8th. We want to remember, as we just did through that 15-minute production, all of those who have fallen in service for our country and our allies, and have an amazing race this afternoon. And so we'll just get straight into it, and we'll first talk about the track that we have these cars going around. We, of course, have the GT4 cars we talked about for a few weeks leading up to this event. That means the Porsche 718 Cayman and the BMW M4, both GT4 versions here this afternoon, ready to do a battle, mostly BMWs as well. We have the track map on your screen currently, so this is what these guys have to contend with. It's certainly an interesting race course, a challenging race course. Turn 1 is actually one of the more straightforward beginnings for a racetrack, but then it all gets very, very interesting. You hook that 90-degree sweeping left down to what's technically turn 2, and then turn 3, 4, 5, that inner complex of the racetrack around the carousel, and down through Big Bend, turn 6, towards the turn 7 hairpin, past what was the Fangio chicane in turns 8 and 9, into Cunningham in turn 10, through Collier, through 11 to 12, down to Tower, turn 13. Turn 14 is Bishop, and really that's just kind of a kink to set you up for turn 15. You hook a couple of left bends, and then you get on the brakes hard, get on the binders, hook back to the right for turn 15, down into what is Le Mans. Turn 16 sets you up for the Ullman Straight, down to one of the most famous corners in motorsport. Turn 17 at Sebring, it's Sunset. Now, I don't know exactly how long this race will go into the afternoon/evening in the sim, but these drivers will eventually, I think, have to contend with the sunset out their windshields. That's why it's named such. So that will be something to watch out for this afternoon. Trey, Margaret, welcome to the Pit Stop TV booth. It's great to have you as always. We are ready for what is going to be an amazing iRace of Remembrance. And of course, so many of us have those connections, be it friends, family, acquaintances, what have you. So this is going to be a powerful day for a lot of people, and a powerful day as well for the drivers on the racetrack getting ready to get going. We'll go ahead and walk down our starting grid, beginning with row 1. It's Chris Walsh starting first for AOA Racing. We've got the number 20. That is being piloted by, well, we don't have his first name, but Rudzides. So things can be a little bit different considering we have teams instead of drivers, but Swarm Racing will be starting in second place. BMW CCA Club Racing starting third in row number 2. Fish and Sim Racing in the number 5. They'll start fourth place. Go back to row 3. We have Really Slow Motion Racing in the 105. They are starting 5th place. 6th is going to be Rocket Surgeon Racing. You'll see the driver names that are piloting each of these race cars on your race grid. Roll back to row number 4, it's Swarm Racing 1 and S5 Motorsports. And going back to row number 5 to round out the top 10, it's Team Crashed, Christopher Bailey in that car to start things out, and Gen Pop Racing. I'll just continue through our starting grid here, guys. Les Talk Racing in the number 49. They start 11th place. Whiplash Racing, purple, being piloted and started by David Levine, will roll off the grid in 12th. Rolling off the grid in 13th, actually, their teammates, It looks like that's a little bit mixed up. So I'll walk you through this manually. Their teammate car, the number 77 Whiplash Racing Aqua, will be starting in 13th spot. Resilience Racing Esports starts 14th. Roll back to 15th. It's Night Blind Racing. Descent will be starting that car. Swarm Racing 2 with Edward Nelson behind the wheel starts 16th. Resilience Racing Esports 3 starts in 17th. Starting 18th position, it's EWR Motorsports Silver with Landon Cardulo at the helm. At the helm there. Starting 19th, it's Tooth Autosport. It's in the 522. Resilience Racing Esports rolls off 20th. EWRL Motorsport Orange, there we go, starts 21st. And rounding out the field is C3 Racing. These guys already getting onto the racetrack, beginning their formation lap, getting rolling around this place. It is a 3.7-mile circuit. It stretches for quite a ways over some old airfield here used in the Second World War. So kind of fitting that we bring these guys here. It's going to be a wild race. Of course, you see the BMWs, the Porsches getting ready to go racing, and it seems like the Porsche is usually a pretty popular choice in general on iRacing right now in the GT4 category, but all of these, most of these teams rather, opting for that BMW, and then you see a Porsche starting on pole. Only one of 4 Porsches in this entire field tray.
For me, yeah, as you said, it's mostly the preferred car, but we'll definitely see an influx and a swarm of those BMWs coming for that Porsche here very, very soon.
Yeah, so I see a lot of the BMWs, and these are road cars. That's correct, right?
Yeah, so these are road-going cars for the most part. They mirror their street counterparts to a good point. You see they've been race modified to it. They have roll bars, mostly racing chassis, I believe. They have some aero devices, but for the most part, these pretty well mirror their road-going counterparts, the Porsche 718 Cayman and the BMW M4.
Gotcha. Well, it looks great. They look great going around so far. So hopefully, these cars that will perform well.
I think they're going to perform well, and then some. Of course, these guys, well, actually, this is a fixed setup race. Usually in endurance racing, these guys get a chance to tune their cars throughout the race weekend, but this afternoon, they're all on a fixed setup, which is going to bring the times a little bit closer, and we've already seen that here in qualifying, separated by just a few seconds, I believe, throughout most of the field, about 10 seconds or so. In an endurance race, that's a small amount, actually. And so we'll see these guys, I think, keep together for the most part through the first hour or so, and then we'll start to see some cars start to fall off towards the back end. We'll see this field string out slowly. There are only 22 for a 6-hour race, so it should be easy going for most of these guys as they get ready to head down to Sunset for the final time before going green flag racing again here from Sebring International Raceway. Oh, it looks like there's been an incident already. There's a slow car further back. I want to check in on who that might be. We've got a car a bit cattywampus right now. It's the number 70, and that is... Oh, that's Rocket Surgeon Racing. They've got big problems here. They must have had an off. There's another car with some damage. We'll have to check back in on that story, but we are coming to the green flag here momentarily. Out of turn 17 for the final time. Ready to collect the green flag is this entire iRace of Remembrance field. The green flag flies, and we are racing in the iRace of Remembrance.
Come across the stripe for lap number 1, 6 hours going to go down. Going into turn 1, we got a car way off into the inside pit wall. Looks like that is the 49 car of Lestock Racing. You're going to see a car come out of the pits around him. He gets it back going. Nonetheless, we're still green, going all the way through turn number 3. Looks like everybody's going to get through there just fine. We're going to go into turn number 7 through the hairpin here in just a second. Looks like everything is still going fairly well as we speak.
Yeah, these guys look great coming through. Hopefully, I can't imagine being in the car for 6 hours. So they do rotate drivers, correct? Or not?
Yes, so we'll see these drivers while these teams make pit stops about every 90 minutes or so throughout this race, and they'll each change drivers. However, these guys are starting with the driver who qualified for them. So their fastest driver in qualifying, they could switch drivers, I do believe, and see who was fastest. But the fastest driver for their qualifying run had to start this race car. And so those are the drivers that are currently in. It's no wonder then that Chris Walsh is currently leading the way for Resilience Racing Esports and AOA Racing in the number 718. Unfortunately, it doesn't look like his paint scheme is loading. We'll see if we can figure that out throughout the rest of the day. But leading the way out of Le Mans for the first time under green flag conditions, and that 718 is looking spectacular as always. Chris Walsh doing a great job at the head of the field. A little further back, you're seeing some of the rest of these guys start to sort themselves out. There were some battles throughout the rest of the field, and really mixing things up as well. Whiplash Racing Aqua is now just ahead of their teammate Whiplash Racing Purple as David Levine gets clear of, that was Storm Racing 1 into turn 17. So some passes right there to complete lap number 1. We race out of turn 17 and we complete the first lap at pace for these drivers. We are green flag racing for this 6-hour event. Now, again, we've got a whole lot of things to keep track of. Margaret brings up the driver changes. Those should, again, happen about every 90 minutes. Now, they do have a minimum drive time throughout the race. Each driver has to drive at least 1 hour. Now, they can have 2 or 3 drivers in their team. They can only drive up to 2 hours total, but it doesn't make a whole lot of sense for somebody to drive 2 hours total, in one stint, because that is a half hour longer than their fuel stints. These guys, again, should be going about 90 minutes. We should see them stop pretty much at each 90-minute mark, make their pit stop, make their driver change, and get back going for the next 90 minutes. There may be some teams that try and game that strategy a little bit, but I'd imagine it's going to be a very cut and dry strategy for all of these teams out here today. AOA Racing and Resilience Racing Esports, clear in a way the favorite right now, but don't overlook BMW CCA, Swarm Racing 3, and Fish and Sim Racing here, all on the tail of that 718 Porsche.
Yeah, like you said, don't count them out. It's really early on in this race. As you see, we're only about 4 minutes into this race. They're only about a second. Fourth place is only about a second and a half back. I know it's quite a bit of time, especially for a road course, but it's all this stuff's really about patience and attrition, especially on a long course like Sebring. Anything can happen, and all it takes is one mistake.
And the weather makes a difference as well on their their health if they need water. Don't you think that would contribute to the driver changes?
Yeah, they might have some people standing by their side in their house, wherever they've got their sim rig, but for the most part, I think these guys will probably make sure they are just set, good to go. In fact, I did the same before we got going live here. I've got a couple of drinks for myself, but I think really it's just a matter of buckling down, making sure you have something to drink for sure. But 90 minutes, I don't think is too unheard of, actually, here on iRacing. It might sound like a long time to be playing a game in essence, but it seems like a lot of these guys end up getting quite used to running 90 minutes straight on. Now, the Operation E Motorsport iRacing League races were only an hour in length each time they ran those Mazda Miatas, so it's a little bit different for some of those drivers that may only have that experience. But if you're a frequent iRacer or a frequent racer in general, I don't think 90 minutes is going to be too bad at one time. It's a matter if any of these guys go up to 2 hours, it might start to get a little bit grueling. I know, having done some endurance races on iRacing myself, it can start some sciatica for some people or what have you, so it can be a strain after a little while. We're watching the battle up here in the top 4. Again, AOA Racing leading the way, Chris Walsh at the helm. We've got BMW CCA Club Racing in second place, Storm Racing 3 in third, Fish and Sim Racing in fourth. Then you go back and you've got Shane Hunter's actually just on his own right now for S5 Motorsports in the 5th place. Whiplash Racing Aqua is in 6th, followed up by Whiplash Racing Purple. So the team car is doing pretty good. I'm going to kind of mess with Emerson Arden here because he's standing by for his portion of the broadcast. We'll get to that point in a moment. But Emerson's got a couple of fights, or I guess a couple of fighters in this race as well. His aligned drivers' teams are going to be the EWRL Motorsports Silver, number 57, currently being piloted by Landon, and the number 75 EWRL Motorsports number 75.
Yeah.
And we'll take care of that. They are currently... It's still not working. Give us one moment. We'll be right back. Sorry about that. Just working out a little production kink there. But we are back, and we'll continue on watching this battle up at the front. Resilience Racing Esports still leading the way, and actually, that was second place. BMW CCA Club iRacing going purple on that lap with 212. That's got some pace behind it for sure.
Yeah, having slipstream coming out of the final corner down the front stretch helps as well, but having some pace early on definitely pays off, as we see that they've actually gained about 1/10 of a second on the leader from the last lap. As you can see, the top four still pretty much under a blanket, and then you further back, you see the 927 about a little over 6 seconds back. So the top four are kind of in their own bracket right now, just chilling out and running their own race. You know, that's really all you have to do, especially with a race this long. Kind of just run your own race. You know, just be patient, because you don't want to do anything, I guess, out of the ordinary or a ill-advised move, especially this early in the race.
Now, I've never done any iRacing, so is it something that, you know, it's something people get into and is addictive? Tell me, can you educate me a little bit about that?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, there's so many different objectives that you can set yourself. So it's not like a normal game. And for those wondering, Margaret is first time here with us at Pit Stop TV. She's got a radio background, so she's learning along with anybody at home that might be learning about iRacing for the first time. So it's actually a pretty good way for us to answer some relevant questions. And by all means, these drivers get onto iRacing, and generally it's hooked for sure right away. You get into just running rookie races, Mazda Miatas, oval street stocks, etc., and you just kind of get into it at a small level, but you can do some hosted racing events with some free content. You can buy all the content at once if you want, or you can chip away at it over time and just learning new cars, and it certainly becomes a nice way to challenge yourself, learning new disciplines as well. I mean, there's dirt oval racing, there's rallycross, there's off-road truck racing. There's so many different ways to get involved here on iRacing.com, and so many different ways that you can do it as well. In fact, we have the Operation eMotorsport iRacing League, the Operation eMotorsport iRace Remembrance. There's countless leagues that we broadcast on a weekly basis, so that's just one way you can get into it. You can get into the official races and work on your I rating, your safety rating, and basically just work your way up the ranks of everybody on iRacing. Or you can just do hosted races. You can just do testing. They now added AI. There's so many different ways you can get involved on iRacing. So certainly plenty of different opportunities for you to get into it and find what is fun for you. Still watching this top four go at it, and this is interesting that they're dancing around a little bit, a whole lot actually, especially that Porsche up there leading, Chris Walsh at the helm. It's interesting that they're dancing around this much at the start of this 6-hour race, because you want to make sure those cars are dialed in, but they don't have that option this time around. They've got to go with whatever the fixed setup was, and some of these drivers got a chance to work on that as well. And so far, it's working for Chris Walsh, but we saw his car dance around on the entry to turn 7, and that is definitely a place you don't want it to dance around, because you can absolutely get the rear end to come out from underneath you. You can catch some grass under braking, and that's going to send the car around every single time.
Absolutely. That is definitely one of the danger spots, to have that car dancing around on you. If I'm not mistaken, I think with the fixed setup, I think the only thing they can do inside the car, correct me if I'm wrong, is brake bias, which will help when under braking with adding more front and rear brake. As you see, we're actually on board. I believe this is with our leader, Chris Walsh. So we'll check that from the roll bar camera here. You see We're going to go back to the field. We're actually on board with 4th place right now. This is Fish and Sim Racing.
And this is Tyler Guglielmente in the number 5. He's in behind the number 20 currently, and that is Swarm Racing 3, currently being piloted by, I believe it is, let me find it back on our list here, Liam Rudzides. So these guys are settling in, I think, 3rd place. Oh, actually, a pass to the lead, actually, as we're watching the onboard, because Chris Walsh has been overtaken into turn 1 by a BMW by the number of 44. So lead change pretty early. That's Kurt Poulter in the BMW CCA Club iRacing machine. Oh, and a big send into turn 3 as well. That was from Tyler Guglielmente, who we were on board with. That was a big move to get 3rd place, and he might have a shot here at the number 718 of Chris Walsh. This could really change things up here at the front.
Yeah, it was definitely a big power move going into turn 3 and 4 there. We're going to go into turn 7 now. Hard braking zone. Looks like they're all going to make it through there just fine. No power moves going through there quite yet. We're going to go into a short stretch here. And we're going to see if he can set up another pass here, because he is definitely booking it.
Yeah, those passes looked super smooth. You know, I appreciate a good, you know, when you find your window, you take it. You know, find your opportunity.
That said, though, it is 13 minutes into a 6-hour event, so that's something drivers will keep in mind, though, as they race around one another. Is hey, he was aggressive in the first 10 minutes of the race. You know, might not cut him a break later on, especially if these drivers end up a lap down later on, end up in the way of somebody. They can just kind of stay there for a couple of corners and hold somebody up and affect the battles on different laps. That's a dynamic we'll have to watch as this race goes on. But for right now, everybody just keeping it clean. I think those were some moves just trying to get by people. I think obviously these drivers know. They will know if they feel like they're getting held up, and I think that's going to come into play in a lot of these moves early on, especially with Chris Walsh, who he's looking down the inside to Sunset. He just poked his nose out. He's certainly not close enough to make a move. We want to watch his 3rd place battle, though, because this still could change. In fact, there we go. As Liam makes a move to the inside of Tyler. That should be good. Oh, Tyler out on the very outside of turn 17. Meanwhile, Chris Wallace brings the fight right back to Kurt Poulter. This is for the race lead.
Almost side by side coming out of 17, going into turn 1. The 44 BMW CCA Club iRacing still keeps the lead. You're going to see AOA Racing, Chris Walsh trying to get on the back bumper of that 44 BMW. We're going to go into turn 2 and 3. Looks like he's going to pull away and get that little bit of a surge off the corner going to turn 4 and 5. Looks like he has nothing for him right now, but that could be subject to change here coming out of turn 6 going into turn 7.
Yeah, all these guys look great so far. I mean, I couldn't imagine driving for six hours. So we'll see if they keep up the pace.
Keeping up the pace is certainly going to be a tall order early on. You just want to get into a groove, and these GT4 cars take a while to get their tires warmed up to optimal temperature. We're checking in on a battle right now back here for 9th position on the racetrack. Now, you see the green number box around the number on the back end of this number 10 Porsche. You see the beneficiary slash open, I believe, or pro slash beneficiary. Pro-Am, I think is what the class is being called. You see that on the back end of the number 10 Porsche. Now, up on all those leaders, you saw yellow markings. The green markings denote some Pro-Am drivers, Pro/Am. It's a mixing of a pro driver. Oh, it's actually, there might have been some contact right there. Brazilians Racing Esports goes on through, and, well, no, there wasn't contact. It sounded like there was a crunch from behind on that number 7 BMW. But you're seeing the green markings, the green mirrors and such, because these teams are incorporating a pro driver, or at least one pro or open driver and one beneficiary driver. They're going for a separate win in this race. Everybody is technically in the same class. They're being scored all as one overall category, but a couple of different battles, just like our Operation eMotorsport iRacing League, where they are battling between 3 different classes in one race. These guys are going to have that little discrepancy here in the overall results. And I actually don't know if there's anybody else battling ahead of them within their own category. We see an open car. You're there in the number 42. And it's more, I guess, convenient to describe the open cars. They're just anybody can sign up and anybody can run for them. But the pro/beneficiary cars or open/beneficiary cars have to be including at least one beneficiary driver in their driver lineup. Again, we have driver changes. This is a 6-hour race. They're going to be swapping in and out of these cars. So incorporating the beneficiary, which is basically anybody who has benefited from Opmo, is a cool way to race for a different little bit of a reward there, and I believe plaques will be going out to the podium of each class's top 3. So even though it's all scored as one color, one class on your left side ticker, there are a couple of separate battles throughout this race. This is the lead battle for that beneficiary inclusive class.
Well, I appreciate the insight on that because that is something actually I did not know, so that's good to know going forward. So we're looking now on the 10. Christopher Bailey's currently sitting in 10th place right now, trying to track down, looks like Resilience Racing Esports, following suit in front of him. And then we have Gen Pop Racing, you see up a little bit further ahead of him, that they're currently sitting in 8th place. So they're currently trying to track down P9, you see behind them. There's not a whole lot going on or in front of them, or in front or behind them. We're back to the lead battle here. 44 of BMW CCA, CCA Club iRacing and AOA's Racing Chris Walsh making a run for the lead. Hasn't quite got to him. We're coming across the stripe. We're just about 18 minutes into this race. We're going to head it back into turn 1 and see if Chris Walsh can make a run for that lead. Doesn't look like he's going to have quite the run yet. We're going to see if he can get anything for it going down to 2 and 3.
Now, how often do you see wrecks and big events like that?
Oh, whenever these guys mess up, for sure. It could come at literally any time, especially with these guys battling up front. Now, I've done some clarifying on our entry list. As the 44 runs through the grass, they're going to see some livery switch up, trying to get the livery for the number 718 to load on our end. So hopefully that works out for Chris Walsh's machine. As actually Chris Walsh makes the overall pass here back for the race lead. But that 718 Porsche is actually racing for that pro/beneficiary class. So they're in a separate battle, technically. So I called out the lead being for the no, this is the leader in that category. So Chris Walsh is going to have Adam Poppenhaus driving along with him. It lists Callum Belden originally in our entry list, but I believe that has changed. I believe Callum Belden has changed his entry. I'll pull that up real quickly on my end at least to try and work everybody through that. I'll have to just find that right quick. But I do believe Callum Belden has left the number 718 entry. I'm going to find that momentarily. And yeah, so Callum Belden will be racing with Cameron Evans in the number 13 BMW for Resilience Racing Esports. We're going to find them right quick. They are currently in 14th position overall. There's the Resilience Racing colors. And let's see, they're behind one of the open cars, the number 70 Rocket Surgeon Racing, another one of the open cars ahead. That's Swarm Racing 2. Then we get back up to some of the cars we were looking at before. Resilience Racing Esports number 2. This is Rick Hazlitt behind the wheel currently. We saw him a lot in the normal league throughout the last 8 weeks. Team crashes up ahead. That's where we saw Chris Bailey. This is this is the second place battle in the pro/beneficiary category. These guys racing for 9th and 10th on the racetrack, though, just behind Gen Pop Racing. So 3 cars in a row right there. And then you go back up to the front, and you see the Porsche has the green banner at least. Chris Walsh looks like his paint isn't quite loading, but they do at least have the green banner, so we can keep that part in mind with the number 718. They are currently leading both overall and for the pro/beneficiary category. And when you think about it, Emerson will know. That's no surprise at all here, Trey, because Chris Walsh was the pro champion. He won almost every single race. He did almost every single thing there was to do in the normal Mazda Miata League. So it's no surprise that Chris Walsh is leading the way. And even Adam Poppenhaus is going to be a really, really good weapon for these guys to go out there and try and get that win, because Adam Poppenhaus darn near won the championship in the beneficiary category. So these guys almost have 2 championship drivers from the previous league that we ran. So I would not be surprised to see this number 718 end up in victory lane, despite being technically the second class. But really, I mean, these two were in a class of their own.
Yeah, I was just kind of doing some research before we got in here. I noticed I was trying to put some names and numbers together, and I noticed that definitely Chris Walsh and Poppenhaus were definitely one of the ones to look at for sure. And then you said they're kind of in a class of their own, and as you see now, if you look on the ticker on the left side of our screen, they have a 3-second gap on Swarm Racing. So they have kind of just pulled their own little gap there, kind of just in their own I guess tax bracket, if you will. Just
that's one way to put it.
Yeah, just I don't know why I said tax bracket, but that's what we're gonna go with. They're just kind of in their own zip code. That's more.
Well, you know what? I'm gonna step in real quick, and I like that you said tax bracket, because we actually have North Carolina Democratic Representative Greer Martin that has watched at least some portion of the race. Hopefully he's still watching with us. But I think Greer watched a couple of the season races, and he was a part of our opening ceremony earlier on. So it's actually very funny, because I just checked over to the chat over on the Opmo YouTube channel. I just seen Greer's name in there, and then you say tax bracket. I don't know. It just that worked out quite nicely. But Margaret, I think now that we're getting some time to settle in, getting you your first taste of some Pit Stop TV action here, especially with the Operation E Motorsport iRacing League iRace of Remembrance, this is a great way to, I think, bring somebody into sim racing broadcasting for sure.
Yeah, it's a little nerve-wracking, to be honest. I don't know all of the terminology and the drivers, but it is a good way to introduce a newbie, I guess. So I appreciate you fielding my questions and everything. So
absolutely, there's a lot of things that we as frequent iRacers take for granted. So it's really cool to be able to have somebody on the staff, if you will, on the crew that can ask us those questions, make sure we explain certain things, some certain discrepancies that we might not always think about, because there's a lot that we talk about as normal, but isn't at all normal to somebody who's tuning in to their first iRacing broadcast. So I'm glad that you kind of reel us back into that kind of thing, and by all means, keep those questions coming. But Trey Patton, right now, we're seeing this race kind of work out into its own little thing, and very calm up at the front, but we're starting to see that battle we looked at previously with Team Crashed and Swarm Racing really pick up. And actually, it looks like Resilience Racing Esports has gone on by Hunter Reeve behind the wheel of that number 7, so no wonder that BMW is looking pretty good. The number 7 BMW working on by Gen Pop and Team Crashed, but now Gen Pop in between these two pro/beneficiary cars.
You saw there, Gen Pop almost got the bumper put to him going into the corner. Thankfully, no contact was made there. So we are on board right now with Team Crash. Currently sitting 10th place. Christopher Bailey trying to make a run on the 42 of that Gen Pop racing machine. You're going to see him hit those curbs there. Looks like he's not getting much done right now, but like I said, we're still much early on in this race, much time left. You're going to see maybe a run going into the final corner here, going into Sunset. He's going to go way wide. You're going to see the 42 hold that yellow line. It looks like that's going to benefit for him as they come across the straight.
Yeah, I think these guys look good. Like I've said before, I keep saying it. I couldn't imagine racing for 6 hours. So you said, Andrew, you've done a 2 hour. Is that the max that you've done endurance? And how is that for you?
Oh, we take part in 24-hour races. There's the iRacing, Daytona 24, the Le Mans 24, and so on. There's multiple 24-hour events throughout the year, but generally, you're either going to do, in those races, you're either going to do 2 hours as 2 fuel runs of 1 hour each if you're running a GT car, so like a Ford GT, a BMW M8, a Chevrolet Corvette, something like that, or you might go up and quad stint and do 4 hours at a time. You might sometimes throughout a night shift in one of those endurance races do a triple stint and do 3 fuel runs, but generally it's generally a double stint, which is 2 runs of fuel on the same set of tires. You might have to pit for tires if it's a hot race, but these guys aren't going to be doing that this afternoon. They're going to be doing 1 stint and done, getting out of the car. They're not going to be staying in the car through a pit stop every time they come in, for the most part. Unless somebody gets off sequence and has to run 2 hours to the end, they can leave their driver in, which actually would save some time. But for the most part, all these guys are going to be making their stop and their driver change simultaneously. But again, if they worked it out to where they didn't say they get off sequence there at the end and they just take their pit stop, they don't worry about a driver change, they could actually save themselves a little bit of time, which is super important if you're trying to come back and try and get back by somebody for one of those battles towards the end of this race. So we'll have to watch out for the entire field, really, not just what's close, because there's a whole lot that you have to read into in these endurance races. So I'm looking forward to seeing how these teams attack it, and hopefully, even if they get a little bit out of it, even if they get caught up into an incident or something, hopefully they stick with it and go for the best result.
Yeah, especially when it comes to endurance races, you can't let an incident count you out of it, because, I mean, as somebody that's participated in some 24-hour events myself, and a couple 12 hours, 10 hours, and even 6 hours, or even some 2-hour events, or just even some of the official ones, you can't let I got spun out, my race is over, because you never know what's going to happen, especially when it comes into a longer race, getting from the 6 to 24-hour range, because you may get rear-ended and have, some damage, get it fixed under a pit stop, and, the people you're battling with could get in an incident and, just put your whole race in a whole different thing. Completely. Looked like Team Crashed had a crash there, so that battle back there has dissipated to a 2-car battle now.
This is the replay of that incident. Oh yeah, you see out of turn 5, getting set for turn 6. Now, that's a transition between loading the car in one direction and then the other. So the transition kind of tricks the suspension sometimes. We'll watch it on board here with Chris Bailey, and he even pops the curb for good measure. That's certainly going to end up in a spin like that most times, and just noses the car into the barrier. Thankfully, it doesn't look too bad for Christopher Bailey and Team Crash, but that is exactly what we're talking about. You can't let that get in the way of the rest of the 6-hour race up ahead. There's still 5.5 hours to go, and by all means, one little spin like that, easy to overcome. We do have one car in the pit lane. It is the BMW from Les Talk Racing. And very curious. They were the ones who spun in turn 1 there at the start of the race. We'll see what happens to them possibly. They must have had an incident up ahead. That number 49 looking a little bit worse for wear. They come in and they're going to make a pit stop and hopefully continue back on here shortly. Back up to the front though, Chris Walsh still leading the race for Resilience Racing Esports and AOA Racing. BMW CCA Club iRacing still second place with Kurt Poulter. Then we see Liam for Swarm Racing the third pretty much. They've got the Roman numerals 3 next to their name. It just kind of works, I guess. But Fish and Sim Racing, Tyler Guglielmente is still at the wheel, currently in 4th. Something we're going to have to keep an eye on here is lap traffic shortly, because Really Slow Motion Racing, and I believe they actually had a penalty at the start of the race for first lap contact, but Really Slow Motion iRacing is actually only, 20 seconds or so ahead of the race leader. So this is on board with the number 105. They're currently headed into turn 13, it looks like. And if we fall back to the race leader, well, he's into turn 10. So only a few corners apart for these two, about 20 seconds between them.
It may seem like a lot, but considering the pace that the that Chris Walsh is going and the pace that they're going in the 105, 20 seconds can be made up in, maybe a little less than a lap, maybe a little more than a lap. Just depends on how fast he wants to burn up and get through that traffic. But I anticipate or I expect Chris is going to be very smart going through that traffic. He's got to maintain pace right now. As you see, he's pulled about 2 seconds on the 44. So he's definitely got his car dialed in, got his pace set. So now it's all about playing defense and a little bit of offense at the same time, trying to pull that gap and weave his way through traffic.
Andrew, you mentioned there was a car on pit road. Is it like a NASCAR situation where the pit road is open, or is it always open, or how does that work? And are there penalties as well?
Yeah, so the racetrack is green, and so that means that the pit road is going to be open. We're not going to see the pit road close unless and this is a very slim chance of this happening, but if there's a large event, a large incident, we could have a full course yellow, but it's not likely at all, so I don't even want to mention it too much. So the pit road will stay open for all 6 hours of this race, and they can pit all the way up to the end, whenever they need to. And by all means, if you speed into the pit lane, if you speed out of the pit lane, during the pit lane, whatever, you can rack yourself up a penalty. If you enter or exit unsafely, by the way, iRacing deems it, you got to make it in between cones, basically, you could rack yourself up a penalty. So you do have to make sure you are on your game, even into the pit lane. It is just like NASCAR, where you can rack yourself up penalties for speeding, missing the commitment cone, whatever. So even the blend line on pit exit, you've got to be very, very careful to exit safely. So you can absolutely rack yourself up a penalty if you guys are watching and if you don't know. These guys do have a pit limiter button, though, in these sports cars that they can use to keep the car on the pit speed. So that shouldn't be a problem for too many. It really should just be coming down to pit speed and then leaving the pit. They might try and disengage that pit limiter just quick enough to eke out just that little bit of an advantage, and they could sometimes ping themselves for speeding in the pit lane. So that's what these drivers have to watch out for.
And that's actually more common than you think, just hitting that button just slightly early. I know myself in some endurance races, I did that at Spa and Le Mans, just caught speeding just right out of the pit road. And, it's very tedious. You got to be meticulous when you're going to hit that button. When you're coming in, you got to get on the brakes just in time. And, like I said, leaving pits, you got to be very, very careful when you hit that button, because it doesn't take much to get these cars up that couple mile an hour to be deemed speeding in that sector. We see this battle. I believe this is for 3rd and 4th. So you see Swarm Racing and Fish and Sim Racing battling out of turn 17, headed to the stripe, going to go down into turn 1. Not much of a battle, really. Yet, just kind of single file, trying to sort things out. So you're coming through turn 1 and 2. Gonna go into turn 3 on the brakes. Yeah, really nothing much going on behind them. You see a car further on back there. And then not really much going on in front of them, because they have about another 2 seconds to the car in front of them. And that would be the 44 of BMW CCA Club iRacing.
We have been informed that these drivers will incur themselves, their teams, a penalty every 15 incident points. Now, an incident point on iRacing is a 1x if you go off track, a 2x if you make contact with a wall, a barrier, or light contact with another vehicle. You get 4 incident points for making heavy contact with another vehicle, and it's pretty easy. And actually, I believe it's 2 for losing control as well. So it's pretty easy to rack yourself up some incidents if you aren't careful, mostly by virtue of just running off the course a little bit. So definitely you've got to be aware of your surroundings every moment, every point in time throughout this race, because you can, again, incur yourself a penalty every 15 incident points. And that's not just for the driver either. That is for the entire team. So I wouldn't be surprised if we see 1 or 2 of those handed out to most teams throughout the field, just by virtue of, again, dropping a wheel here and there, being a little bit sloppy sometimes on a corner exit, corner entry. You might just end up picking up a little bit of grass and dinging yourself for a 1X. It's pretty easy to do. You might even see these guys eventually, once they start working through some lap traffic, a 4X should end up being pretty common because, again, you're trying to work through cars that are slower than you, and you're trying to do so while also having a race going. The good news is for most of these guys up front, the front battle is starting to work themselves out pretty nicely, and since things are calming down a little bit here in the first hour of the iRace of Remembrance, we'll take our first guest interview of the afternoon, and we are going to have Christopher Shields coming on up, so we'll bring him into the broadcast booth. And Christopher Shields, do you have us? Looks like they're going to sort him out and make sure he can get his mic going, but we'll have him here momentarily. Do you want to then go over just kind of how we're looking in the race overall? Leading still is AOA Racing with Chris Walsh behind the wheel. BMW CCA Club iRacing in second place. Storm Racing the third in third. Fish and Sim Racing in fourth. Fifth place is S5 Motorsports. A little further back is the Whiplash Racing Aqua Machine in sixth place. Whiplash Racing Purple in seventh. Brazilians Racing Esports in the eighth position. Gen Pop Racing in ninth. And Rocket Surgeon Racing rounds out the top 10. Looks like we've lost a commentator or two. We still have Trey Patton. It seems like we've lost Margaret, though.
Yeah, unsure what happened there, but she hopefully will be back soon, but still on looking at this battle for third and fourth. I believe we're looking at the battle with Fish and Sim Racing and Swarm Racing 3. So picking up where we left off. Not really much going on here still yet. We're going to see him try to make a run going on the inside of those curbs. We have regained Margaret. Welcome back.
Sorry about that.
And
Sorry.
No, you are absolutely fine. The battle for the, not the lead, the third and fourth spot here. We're going to see them going down into this should be turn 17. And I believe we've got him in here, so Andrew, I'll let you have at it.
It looks like we do have Christopher Shields. Christopher, how you doing this afternoon?
I'm doing great. Great to be here and great to have this virtual event since we can't actually go to Wales this year.
Yeah, absolutely. I know it's this is kind of the stand-in then for, I believe, what has been a yearly tradition for at least a little while. I'm not sure exactly how many years running, but it's tough, man. 2020 has been something that nobody has wanted at all. This year as a whole has just thrown so many cogs in the machine, but I'm very honored, very humbled that we get to be the way that a lot of you guys are still able to connect this year.
Yeah, no, so they've done it a total of 3 years live. Fourth year before that, Tiffany and Diesel got over and kind of, got an idea of what the event was and decided that they wanted us to participate in that. And then myself, I did the crew chief for the last 2 years. So I've gone myself the last 2 years, last year being an amazing one because unlike previous years, we had our own car, our own drivers, and every single team member was a member of Operation Motorsport, either coming from Canada or the U.S. So we didn't have to borrow any of the Mission Motorsports people. So it was quite the event and just amazing to be over there.
I can only imagine. Now, Chris, we're told that you're an OPMO volunteer, a beneficiary trustee, Canadian military liaison. That was the list of titles that Jason Leach handed over to me. Tell us what all of those means. Tell us what you do for Operation Motorsport.
Sure. Okay. Well, I mean, I originally actually came in as a beneficiary myself. My operational stress injury that I had suffered through was quite a few years ago. But as anybody knows, recovery is a lifelong. Just like getting over, alcoholism, or it's a lifelong recovery process. So that's actually how I was, kind of word of mouth. I had a friend that was in there, and they said, hey, I think this might be something that would be beneficial. So I came in, spent a year as a beneficiary, which was great because now I have, just like in the military, where you don't ask anybody to do something that you haven't suffered through. Well, I've done it. I've been on the.
It looks like we've lost him there momentarily. Hopefully we can get him back and we can continue our conversation. But Oh, it's actually, it looks like we're going to have to work on that. Anyways, yeah, it looks like we've lost Chris. We should get him back here momentarily, but you can see top of your screen now as we get the ticker back up for you. Everybody's settling in. This is actually a battle towards the back end of the field here. Really slow motion racing in the 105. BMW up ahead of Night Blind Racing in the 21st position. These guys battling right at the back of the field and just on the lead lap for now. But that leader, Chris Walsh, is certainly starting to close in. About a 10-second gap now. So in that bit of time, it's gone from 20 seconds down to 10.
He's definitely got a pace. He is flying through the field, setting some pretty quick laps. You know, just for reference, his last lap was a 2:13.5, and second place, Swarm Racing, was a 2:13.9. So he's almost half a second quicker than second place, but actually looks like BMW CCA was actually quicker than Chris Walsh on the last lap by about 0.04 of a second. So I mean, there's still some quick times going out through the field. Just up front, it's obviously you expect to be some of the faster guys, but that 44 car, don't count them out. You know, they're about 2 seconds back. 2.5 seconds back, give or take. I wouldn't count them out yet because they are running about slightly faster, if not on pace with our leader right now.
Yeah, I think, like you said before, I think that pace is important in endurance races. And can you speak more to setting yourself up for that, Andrew? Can you tell us about how much the pace matters?
Well, really, in this first hour, it's not going to matter too much. Maybe not to the first pit stop. That said, you certainly can dig yourself a bit of a hole that's going to be hard to recover from. So you want to kind of balance things. You don't want to push too hard in the early going. You don't want to get yourself into a bad situation. Of course, you want to keep the car in one piece. That's most important. However, you do is actually, Tire Guglielmente, very close there to the back end of the 20 of Liam, and these guys just keep going nose to nose. I wonder if maybe they're working together at this point because they're so close on pace that they stick around one another. But it's really, it's going to come down to seeing how things work out after the first pit stop. I think that's how these teams are going to get an idea of how to play this game and how to try and beat those that they're racing, because you're not really going to have a great idea until you do make your first pit stop and see how things work out, because you might execute better on a pit stop as well, better than the team that you're racing. You might get some time there, so you might be able to kind of relax after that. But it is going to be a matter of just keeping consistent. That's the biggest thing, because if you're going 110%, right, for even 90% of your run, the 10% where you're not, if you're making mistakes, you're going to lose time overall, even if you're pretty fast when you're going 110%. So something these drivers and teams will have to keep in mind throughout these 6 hours. Looks like we do have Chris Shields back. Christopher, do you have us? We're trying to get Christopher Shields back in here. Christopher Shields, you got a copy?
Yeah, good copy.
There we go. We've got you back. So looks like we got cut off there, but go ahead and just tell us once more about what you do with Operation Motorsport.
Yeah, sure. I don't know where I left off, so I'll kind of sum it up a little bit. But essentially, as the recovery programs manager, I work kind of wherever it needs to be, recruiting new beneficiaries, assisting if we have an event going on. I'll show up and assist the person who's actually running the event to just kind of corral and make sure all the beneficiaries have what they need. And then as the trustee, which is my newer position that I took over from a former member, that's just kind of muckling on to the new beneficiaries, interviewing them when they first come up, make sure they have what they need, and just staying in contact with them, especially in these times where we're not seeing each other at events as often, to just make sure that they've got what they need, that we're engaging with them, see when they're available for upcoming events, and just make sure they don't get lost in the shuffle.
And so working with these beneficiaries, how does iRacing help in that, and having this iRacing league, is it of any kind of aid?
Yeah, it really was something that started because of the pandemic, of course, which has been mentioned before. It just gave us that chance to make sure between doing the races themselves as well as we were doing a Friday kind of just a hangout where we wouldn't really talk business. We just kind of, hey, how's everybody doing? How's it going? And it was just really a way to kind of keep us all connected when we couldn't physically go to races. Because normally this is a nuts and bolts type of operation where we actually go to races and these beneficiaries are with teams, or they're working in marketing or with the car corrals, that kind of thing. So they're actually on the ground traveling to all these events. Well, we didn't have that. And right away, we felt that kind of disconnect of not being able to see each other and have that team environment like we had when we were in the military. So this was kind of that initial reach out, and it's turned out to be an amazing opportunity, even as we go into maybe next year where we can do a lot more of the physical events. We're going to keep this going because it works not only as a way to stay connected, but also it's good. It's a good way to get a foot in the door and get kind of started and get excited about racing and keep us all connected.
And of course, we wanted to still be racing over Anglesey Circuit in Wales, but that has certainly been messed up this year by 2020. Things are definitely very challenging, but how does this kind of stand-in event here on iRacing, how much does that compare to the normal race of Remembrance at Anglesey?
Well, I'll tell you, right now I'm a lot warmer and drier than I normally would be. I don't know if you've ever been to Wales, especially on the coast, but it's cold and wet and the wind's always blowing. So it's definitely not as uncomfortable, but you're also missing that kind of in-person connection. As I mentioned before, last year we had a full team of beneficiaries with every slot filled with our own people, which was amazing. It is kind of the culmination of our year where each person's off doing separate events, a couple of beneficiaries this event, a couple of that event, and they're all with different teams. So we're not actually, unless we get together for a drink in the evening, and a lot of times they're with their teams. So this was sort of our chance to all come together and do something as an OPMO team. So obviously not being able to see each other in person, shake hands, get dirty, be up till 2 a.m, trying to get the car ready for the next day. All of those experiences are going to be missed. That being said, of course, everybody watched the little opening ceremony, and it gave me the same feeling as if I was standing on the tarmac there, just this feeling of connection to the people that we're here with. And it sucks that we can't be in, but this is what we do, right? We adapt, we overcome, and we find a way to push through.
Yeah, even just as the iRacing broadcaster here, when I watched that production for the first time last night before putting it into our overlays this morning, man, it's powerful. It means a lot. We've just witnessed an on-track incident here. This is, it was Rick Hazlitt going on by Christopher Bailey, and then there was a bit of a shot in the shorts there. Just to recap you on what happened, Christopher Bailey got a little bit loose out of turn 5 a little while ago, nosed that car into the tire barrier, and he is racing for Team Crashed. Rick Hazlitt racing for one of the Resilience Racing esports machines, in fact, labeled as number 2. I think they actually have 4 cars, counting the AOA entry with Chris Walsh and Adam Poppenhaus. But back to you here, Chris. Obviously, this isn't necessarily a stand-in, or I guess it is a stand-in, but it still doesn't come close to actually being able to go over to Anglesey and race. Yet it still seems like it's massively powerful to the people involved, for sure. Just talking with Tiffany and Diesel throughout the week, and Jason as well, and now talking to you and hearing some of the messages in that production, this still means so much to so many people.
Yeah, for any of us that have done it, the fact that we can't be there, believe me, the memories, that's exactly what it is. It's just overwhelming. The memories of all morning, I've just been thinking about, being on that track and, get up in the morning and it's, the wind's blowing and it's cold, but everybody, I've just never seen people so wet and cold and miserable and smiling like they've never smiled before. It really is, just a unique event. It's one of those things that's hard to explain if you haven't been there, but you definitely get a little sense of that from this. And being able to do this event today, even though it's not on the ground, even though we're not actually turning wrenches and stuff, it still reminds us of why we do this event. And then of course, tying it into Remembrance Sunday, it's like you say, it's not a stand-in, but it's not even better than nothing. It's just amazing that we still have this opportunity to come together around this campfire that is racing and sharing this experience.
Yeah, it means a lot to us to still be a way that some people can connect. Of course, a lot of people that would be, as you say, on the ground in England at Anglesey Circuit and a part of that competition, the Race of Remembrance. Maybe a warmer, a better overall, I guess, experience being able to watch it from your couch. But I think losing a lot of that personal connection. Hopefully, this is as good a replacement as any this afternoon. Chris, thank you for your time, and we are going to set up actually for a message from Operation Motorsport here. But certainly, thank you so much for coming into the booth with us for a little bit, talking and sharing your point of view on all of it.
Yeah, thank you very much. Thank you to all our volunteers and all the people that made this happening. Special shout out to Mr. Sean Knight, who did that wonderful video projection at the beginning of this. And hey, watch the race. Should be a good time. Thank you.
Once again, thank you, Christopher Shields. And we'll be talking to a lot of people throughout the day, a lot of guests throughout the afternoon. So we can't wait to get to talk to more people. I think we'll have some drivers as well, of course, throughout the afternoon and evening. We are now into technically the afternoon. We started this in the morning, and I'm still so used to saying afternoon, evening, and such. So it's very interesting to have to get used to saying morning there at the start. Thankfully, we have now eclipsed 12 noon. We're getting on throughout our day. We're going to step aside for a quick message from Operation Motorsport. We'll be right back to you.
Working on the Porsche GT3 with Park Racing and Volt Racing. I got a phone call from the USO Pathfinder group, and they kind of informed me, and all I heard was cars, Lambos, Porsches, and I was like, yep, good to go. The opportunity that you get just to be able to come out here and actually see these kind of cars, work with teams on hand, and learn. And they don't just say, well, get out of my way and move, and I'll do it. They know. They teach you. That's the favorite part right there.
I found out about Operation Motorsports through the program I'm in with the military. They're helping me transition into the civilian life, and this was a great way for me to take my passion and see what it's like on the high-performance side. I'm here to pick up what I can learn from them so that I can use it with my future career as being an automotive mechanic. This is a great experience whether you're just a at-home kind of person working on your car, changing oils or stuff like that, or wanting to go into the high-performance side. I'm loving how the team's taking me in and really showing me everything. It'll show you just about everything you need to know from the driver standpoint to the tire changing.
Welcome you back to this third place battle. Currently watching, Liam's been overtaken for third place, so we're now watching him try and get back to Tyler Guglielmente for the third position. Hopefully I'm saying that right, because it looks close enough. I mean, we're just going to go with it. I've said it so many times by now that if I'm wrong, I'm wrong. But Tyler currently running in the third position. We'll go through some of the field again. From 10th place up, actually, we're going to change things up. Rocket Surgeon Racing currently running in the 10th spot overall as we come up to almost 1 hour eclipse. Gen Pop Racing has fallen back a little bit. They're now in 9th spot. Resilience Racing Esports, Hunter Reeve behind the wheel currently in the 8th position. Whiplash Racing Purple still has David Levine in that machine. The number 78 running in 7th. Whiplash Racing Aqua, Trevor Anderson behind the wheel. He started this car. He is 6th spot. Shane Hunter's behind the wheel of the S5 Motorsports Machine, there we go. And these two are now battling on the racetrack. This is the battle for 5th. Trevor Anderson has actually hunted down Shane Hunter, so how about that? 4th place up ahead, Swarm Racing the 3rd. That's where Liam is trying to overtake Fish and Sim Racing. And even further up ahead of this battle here is where we see BMW CCA Club iRacing, Kurt Poulter behind the wheel, and of course, well up the road is Chris Walsh for Resilience Racing Esports and AOA Racing. So it's been an interesting first hour of action. We've still got, and actually I forgot to mention this earlier, so you'll notice on Facebook, YouTube, we have this, the title split into 3 parts. What that means is that when we get to 2 hours eclipsed of coverage here, or well, of race time, so in an hour's time, we will be stepping aside and facilitating a little bit of a break in coverage. We're going to switch out teams here for the broadcast. We'll be switching over entirely. We're going to have totally new people on and changing things up a little bit. And we'll be doing the same thing at the 4-hour mark as well. So be ready for that. Coverage is not going to end. The stream will technically end, but don't worry, coverage will continue. Just go to whatever channel you're watching on, be it Operation Motorsport on YouTube or Pit Stop TV on Facebook or YouTube, wherever you're watching from. Make sure you go to the home channel. And of course, if you like or subscribe, that helps you a whole lot as well as us. But then you can find the Part 2 stream, the Part 3 stream, and you can make sure that you are there for the rest of the coverage. So do not be concerned if in an hour the stream shuts down and you're wondering what the heck happened. Again, make sure to go over to the Operation Motorsport YouTube channel itself, or the Pit Stop TV YouTube channel itself, whichever one works, and make sure to go to the second portion of our coverage that'll be happening in an hour. Meanwhile, I mentioned that we'll be having that switch in production team, if you will. We actually have our first switch of the day, and we're welcoming in Joe Donahue as our third commentator now. Margaret had to, she had some things to attend to, but now we got Joe Donahue filling in for the next hour of coverage here. We'll be switching it over to Emerson Arden, Noah Carmichael, and well, Joe Donahue will be sticking around. But, man, welcome in here, Joe, and we still got Trey here ahead of you, but it's been a very calm first hour of racing here for the iRace of Remembrance, but a pretty good way to kick this race off for sure. We're watching one of those right now. This is for the 5th position here, Trey Patton, and this isn't a battle I actually expected. Shane Hunter, it looks like, has run into a few mistakes, and he's fallen back into the hands of Trevor Anderson right now in the number 77. This battle is kicking up. We also have Gen Pop Racing still on the assault here of Hunter Reeve in the number 7 Resilience Racing Esports entry. These guys still just in their own little world. And then, of course, that battle for 3rd is actually broken up a bit. Liam has fallen about a second and change back of Fish and Sim Racing. So, Trey, things definitely starting to split up. Yeah, we've seen a lot of slow going, of course, as you usually see in an endurance race. We've just ticked through an hour of racing for these drivers. We're now just under 5 hours to go in the iRace of Remembrance. Now, that race overseas they usually have, the race of Remembrance at Anglesey Circuit, usually a 12-hour event. We've condensed that down to 12 hours as, well, these two battling right at the hour mark. Trevor Anderson still trying to find a way around Shane Hunter. Shane Hunter, is he coming into pit? Wow, that's actually very interesting from Shane Hunter. Again, these cars can run about 90 minutes. I don't know why you would pit here unless you've incurred a penalty of sorts, and that might be it. We'll see what Shane Hunter does. Very interesting that this number 927 is pitting right here. Yeah, coming in for service. We see an EWRL car as well. So, big changing of the guard here for 5th place, and that EWRL car is actually EWRL orange, leaving the pit lane now, and they've, looks like, made a change at driver as well. So Joshua gets into the car, and they are now 20th place overall. And, ooh, their silver car, it looks like, is 22nd. Starting to, well, I guess at this point, it's one of those comeback races. We've all been there a million times in these endurance races. Sometimes things just don't go right at the start, and you've just got to mount that comeback all day long. But neither one of those cars is out of it by any means. They can certainly come back and gain a ton of spots. All they have to do is stick with it and really run as good as they can, as hard as they can the rest of the race. We've had an off. I'm sorry to cut in there. Resilience Racing Esports. Oh, they have gone off, and that's Callum Belden as well. We talked about that car. So Callum was supposed to be in the leading entry right now with Chris Walsh. He's gone off in turn 7. He's just missed the corner entirely, and oh man, that's going to be detrimental to these tires because while they have not pitted yet, it doesn't seem. I'm trying to find the stint. No, they've actually just re-entered the racing surface. That's why he has missed turn 7. Looks like he has just missed his braking marker. And when you're on cold tires, the car will not grip like it usually does. So Callum Belden figuring that out the hard way and going for a bit of a trip through the grass, a bit of lawn mowing there in turn 7. Thankfully gets back on before the Fangio chicane. And he continues on. But actually, to work off what Joe was saying, personal connections are all that it's everything that this iRace of Remembrance is about. Because Well, the Race of Remembrance, of course, is about remembering the fallen, both for our country and other countries around the world, our allies, of course. It's also the iRace version is also about just making connections with people that you would usually be making connections with at the racetrack, and I think that's the big thing for Operation Motorsport is they're used to going to the racetrack with these people that they've known through who knows what connection for year after year. And I believe we were told earlier, 3 years now that Opmo has gone to Anglesey Circuit for the Race of Remembrance. And this year, of course, a cog thrown a machine, everything just a little bit different. And trying to do our best here. Hopefully, this is a nice way to spend the day. Still, I know it's not what anybody wanted in that regard, but I think it still stands in relatively decently. Is a nice way for people to connect, especially these drivers who are racing. That you know what, a lot of these beneficiaries now get a chance to do the racing themselves as opposed to working on the cars, I think, most of the time and helping with the marketing and everything else. So a bit of a change up for them, for sure.
You know, being from somebody that, you know, you're working on the car and trying to get everything prepared versus, you know, sitting at home, you know, not at a racetrack. It's obviously, environmentally speaking, very different, you know, versus, you know, if you've been to a racetrack versus watching it on TV, you know, it's just completely different. But I think they will be benefiting from doing it from home. You know, it does throw a wrench in the situation, but I believe with all the marketing and stuff that they've been doing from this pandemic has looked like it helped them a lot. You know, just even for promotional reasons and marketing, definitely getting their name out there a lot more, because I've actually seen them promoted more and more just ever since we started covering them. And you know, me honestly, I didn't hear much about them, and then now that we've started covering them and they've been promoted, I've seen people talk about them and you know, just different groups and everything. So they're definitely getting their name out there. And if you guys are looking for an outreach program and, you know, stuff like that, these are the guys to go to.
Trey's absolutely right about that. And I want to build off of what Andrew and Trey have both said about a completely different environment, and these guys who normally work on the cars not getting the opportunity to work on them physically, but rather take part in this sort of iRacing event. And that's the really great thing about a program like this, is that even in a normal off season, sparing there's a pandemic keeping everybody inside, but even normally with cold weather and no racing, these sorts of events, these sorts of races and opportunities for these guys give them a chance to build on some of their knowledge, not only as a race car driver or an engineer, but just understanding the concepts of how to make cars faster. Obviously, iRacing is one of the, if not the single most realistic simulator in terms of the engineering side of motorsports. So for them to have the chance to work with these cars and understand aerodynamics, understand how to adjust brake biases to handle differently in corners, understand, you know, trying to run a racing line, even for the engineers who don't normally get to sit in the driver's seat, to learn that sort of stuff is crucial and very valuable when they go back out on the racetrack once we all get the green light to go do that, whether it be from the off season or from the pandemic that has brought us onto iRacing in the first place. But that sort of stuff is really valuable, and actually even before these sorts of restrictions we've had, people have done this for, you know, actual teams that put time into iRacing just to get a concept of how to make a car run better or how to set up a car better for actual track time.
Absolutely, that's a great point. That's reading into things for sure. I like that you got to that conclusion there, because it absolutely is going to make a big difference for these guys when they get back to the racetrack and helping out and everything. That is going to be huge for these drivers. So, with these drivers now and likely crew members when they go back to real racing. So, absolutely can learn a wealth of knowledge here on iRacing about just little nuances that you might not pick up when you're just working on the car or watching it. So big for them for sure. Now, we're looking at the number 70 car, and this is Rocket Surgeon Racing. They were the ones that were crab walking down the Ullman Straight before we came to the green flag. They have recovered into, well, you see the Rocket Surgeon Racing now in 8th place, and that is incredible. We've actually not seen Paul Lindsay in the Operation eMotorsport iRacing League before, but he's currently behind the wheel of this number 70 car. And Dustin Burkhalter, no wonder, is the other driver in this number 70. So while Paul Lindsay has been in the car for the entirety of the race so far, they have made one pit stop already. And, well, that's why they're going by a lot of these cars, I'd say, because they pitted... Actually, no. So these guys pitted at 31 laps to go, so they pitted at the start. So actually, that's not a part of it at all. They just got pace. I'm very surprised. Paul Lindsay is wheeling this machine. He might even go catch the Whiplash cars here soon, because this 70 just looks great right now, passing a lot of cars, and now back into the top 10, and who knows where the limit is for this number 70 machine as they work their way through the field. Now, we do have, as we already had one guest interview, we do have another one lined up, and we're going to try and get a hold of them here shortly. But real quickly, guys, I want to put you each on the spot. If you had to pick somebody that is not Chris Walsh to win this race, who would it be, Trey?
I've been watching, looking through, obviously, I don't want to be biased. I'd like to see some of our Whiplash guys get it done. But from what I'm looking through the field, the 70 car, that incident going on, before we even went green, the fact that they were way back in the field, had that damage, you can see a little bit of it there. We saw they were crab walking. He's got some great pace, just a little bit over an hour into this race, hasn't even made a pit stop yet, and he's up, trying to run down 7th place right now. So they've definitely got plenty of time. But I got my spots on the 44 BMW CCA race Club iRacing. Those guys have been showing a lot of pace, and they've been up front battling, led some laps. So I feel like if they can get back into the grasp of it and get back up to the front, I think they might be able to send it home.
Yeah, Trey was talking about the 70 car, and I was looking through myself thinking, who do I really want to put the money on? And I was going to say the 44 car as well. I thought leading the race at the start, and obviously about 7 laps, seconds, not laps, about 7 seconds down. I need another cup of coffee. It just proves that the car has speed, and obviously not leading the race right now, but that very well could be strategy or just patience, playing into getting to the end of the race. And I was going to say the 44 as well, but I like the looks of the 70. I like the speed that we've been seeing that car put out, and obviously in battle with other cars on track, very clean running. We can't count out the 718 car in the lead of the race. Certainly that.
Well, now I said you can't pick him. That's Chris Walsh.
Well, but still, you can't leave him out. But I think that if you're going to look at a BMW, if you're going to look at one of those cars, the 44 or the 70, those would be the two cars I would have looked at as well. But I'm going to go with what I thought initially before Trey called it out. I'm going to go with the 44.
It's a solid pick there. I think I would actually look a little bit further back. If something is going to happen up front, I might be looking towards this number 5, maybe even the number 20. Fish and Sim Racing with Tyler Guglielmente. I'm sorry. I went with Guglielmente because I thought there was an N. It's actually 2 T's, so I already messed that up. But, man, I don't know. Tyler, we'll call him Tyler, behind the wheel of the number 5 car in 3rd place. He's been aggressive in the early going. He made that pass, if you recall, on Swarm Racing the 3rd, on Liam Rudzides into turn 3. It was rather aggressive to get to 3rd place, just as Chris Walsh lost the lead for the first time earlier on this afternoon. So the 5 certainly has pace. I think it's just gotten a little bit separated, especially in his battles there with Liam. So he's lost a little bit of time to Kurt Poulter, but if he can just get back up there, he could certainly be in this battle for 2nd place. And we actually have a trio of cars battling down to Sunset right now. Jen popped the Porsche back there. But in the middle is Resilience Racing Esports 1, Hunter Reeve behind the wheel. And up ahead is Paul Lindsay in that number 70 Rocket Surgeon Racing machine. So these guys battling for 7th, 8th, and 9th. Rocket Surgeon looking pretty good. But now they've got to worry about Resilience Racing, because that Resilience car has the draft, especially down the Ullman straight, down this front straight as well. Even Big Ben down to turn 7. Those 3 straightaways are going to be big to be able to keep the draft, and that's what all these guys are worrying about this afternoon. In addition to making through these corners quickly, just keeping in the draft of the car ahead.
Yeah, the draft definitely plays a big factor, trying to, I guess, break the slipstream to the car behind you as kind of harder to do on a circuit like this, you know, opposed to a more open, I guess, track, you know, maybe more so like Spa or Le Mans, you know, where you have those long straightaways and sorts. But definitely this track has spots to where you can gain from slipstream, but not as much as other circuits. So as you see there, it looks like he's actually pulled a little bit of a gap just going through the corners. But definitely time to be made up. As you actually see further ahead there, I mean, they still have quite a bit of a gap to Whiplash Purple. So they're going to try and run down that gap. They've got it down to about 4 seconds now.
Yeah, Trey's got a great point about other tracks having more opportunity. Say, for example, Spa. Spa is a great example with the Kemmel Straight. But in terms of these cars right here, you know, you don't have a whole lot of extra downforce on these cars. The spoilers and splitters and wings on these machines aren't to the same specs and size as certain other types of motorsports. However, they are still fairly large in terms of frontal surface area. Obviously, being production cars, they're not specifically made to be more. Well, I can't say they are specifically erudite, or they are specifically production cars because they're GT4 cars, but they're based around production cars a lot more than, say, a prototype or an open wheel machine. So when you talk about the draft, you talk about alleviating the frontal surface area that is exposed directly to the air that you drive through. So even with these cars being a little bit more based around a production car, and having, you know, corners like we have at Sebring, where there's some sections where it's very technical and the corners are very tight, to larger corners like Big Bend, for example. Even still, amongst the variety of the types of sections of this track you have, the chances to get in a draft and catch up to the car in front of you are very significant for this type of car.
Yeah, we talked about these being mostly production vehicles at the top of the show. Again, the Porsche 718 Cayman and the BMW M4. And these BMWs are much larger, punch a much larger hole in the air, so that gives an easier slipstream to the Porsches. But really, just the draft in general going to be so big for these drivers, these teams, as they go on through this 6-hour event. And you can see the splitter down to the bottom side of the front valence there, the big wing on the back, and really I think the biggest difference that I mean, you see splitters and you see sometimes GT wings on normal cars in the street, but you don't usually see dive planes on the front of these cars. You see the dive planes on each of the front fenders there for the BMW. I think it's actually just in the BMW. I don't see any on the Porsche. Yeah, so just the BMW there. So that's trying to aid that BMW. Of course, front-engined, rear-wheel drive, it's much larger. It needs that help that it can get, actually, to turn in, because otherwise it's just this big, burly beast that can't quite turn in, while the Porsche is rather nimble and being mid-engine actually squats and gets out of the corner pretty nicely. We're going to keep watching this battle. We're actually going to bring in our next guest, Karen Nightingale, and we'll just bring her straight into the booth. And Karen, do you have a copy? Karen Nightingale, this is Andrew in the Pit Stop TV booth. Do you have us?
Reach it out there. Hey,
Karen. Well, I guess first, just how are you doing this afternoon?
I'm great. How are you? Just watching some iRacing and just really loving it and getting back and feeling what missing what the race was really like. So happy to be here.
Yeah, really fortunate that we're able to be that missing connection that a lot of people have had this year. Of course, 2020, a big cog in the machine, as we've mentioned multiple times this afternoon already. What does this mean to you as the logistics support liaison for Operation Motorsport? What does this mean to you and anybody you work with, of course, at Opmo, having this kind of stand in? Of course, it's not a full replacement of the race of Remembrance, but it's at least the best that we can do given the circumstances.
Absolutely. I think you're absolutely right. You hit the nail on the head. It's so well put it. It's the campfire that was around celebrate and the lives that have been lost and the sacrifices. This provides the platform.
So Karen, it's a little bit tough to hear you there. It looks like your mic's a little bit quiet, but I heard you mention that, of course, remembering those have been lost, and I think we do get kind of, I guess, we sink into this race here. We get sucked into the race. We get focused on the race. But I'm glad you mentioned that, because at its essence, at the base of it, I suppose, this race is about remembering those that we have lost, both abroad and at home, actually. Of course, Mission 22, and trying to get that number down to 21, and then hopefully down to 0 very, very soon, of 22 veterans who commit suicide because they come back, and unfortunately, I mean, you can only imagine what you end up seeing at war, and it's a serious problem that we have in this world, being able to support them properly. But we're able to, through Operation Motorsport and through Mission 22 and Mission Motorsport, I believe, be able to aid these veterans when they come back home and provide them a way to hopefully not become one of the 22.
Absolutely, and that's the come back. The scars sometimes aren't visible. There's a lot of stigma around that, and that's what Operation Motorsport is for, to provide that campfire for people to come out and talk about how they feel and share their experiences and know that they're not alone. And I think that's too, that it comes from being alone, and Operation Motorsport is part aiding.
So we're kind of picking through the pieces that we can here, there, Karen. It sounds like the connection's a little bit iffy, but I think I kind of get the gist of where you're going with that. Operation Motorsport, like I said, a great stand-in, a great way for people to, for veterans to come back and be involved with something, and be involved in that team atmosphere that they might not otherwise have, and have people around them that can support them and keep them going. And of course, when they put on events like this, when they go over and support the Race of Remembrance Anglesey Circuit, a great way to remember those who have fallen. And we heard the messages earlier on in that production put together by Sean Knight and Diesel, Tiffany Lauder, everybody else at Opmo. And I mean, there's only so much that you can say, because it's so hard to, I guess, put words around it. For me especially, even though it's my job to sit up here and talk about race cars and really talk about the meaning of this as well, it's pretty tough to put words around the meaning of this kind of event and remembering everybody that we've lost.
Absolutely, and it's one of those things about racing and the military, is the conjunction there is that in the military atmosphere, it's a team sport, and so is racing, and I think that's why they marry up so well. And we suffer the losses, we suffer the crashes, and that's a lot like the military.
Now, I've not been in the military myself, of course, so I don't want to speak on it too much, but it sounds like everybody that we've talked to so far appreciates the team atmosphere at Opmo, and it sounds like that is one of the big factors behind Operation Motorsport, and one of the big things for these people that come back from war, these veterans that need that kind of support. So it's big to be able to get involved with a foundation like Operation Motorsport, and it's big for us as well. Of course, we might all have family members or what have you that have served or are serving, and it's big to be able to be involved for us with Operation Motorsport and be brought into this Opmo circle, if you will, and actually be able to meet people like you, Karen, and talk to you here on this broadcast. What have you liked so far? I guess we'll take a happier note here for a moment. What have you liked so far that you've seen out on the racetrack this afternoon?
Oh my gosh, just the realness of it. I've watched other races in the past, but this, like, it's really virtually, it's incredible. The graphics and everything, and everything's on par, on time. It's like a real race. It really, really is.
Well, certainly that's always the hope when we fire up our broadcast machines and get these things going, that we can present these to everybody watching in as realistic a way as possible. So I'm, again, very humbled, very honored to be that missing link this year when 2020 is such a cog in the machine. Now, considering you are the Opmo Logistics Support Liaison, how has 2020 affected your job?
It's affected a lot, not being able to gather, not being able to do as many briefings as I would normally do, information sessions, and my biggest role is when we go to Anglesey, is I do all of the logistics support as far as catering and making sure the team has fuel to fuel themselves, fuel their bodies, making sure that they have everything they need. So I definitely it's cut down on my involvement for sure, but that's a great thing about Operation Motorsport is even though I'm not a mechanic, I'm not a driver or anything, but logistically I can support that way with hospitality, social media, marketing, and all that sort of.
Absolutely. 2020 has been a big hurdle for everybody to get over this year, but doing our best here, especially as we host the iRace of Remembrance here from Sebring International Raceway. Virtually, that is. Again, standing in place of the Race of Remembrance Anglesey circuit that Operation Motorsport and everybody else involved would usually be heading out to. Karen, we appreciate your time. Thank you so much for joining us here in the booth and giving us your perspective on everything and what you do for Operation Motorsport. Hopefully you have a great day and enjoy the show.
Thank you so much. Thanks for having me.
And again, thank you so much to Karen Nightingale and everybody else that we have had, and we'll continue to have this afternoon and evening. And man, it's always a little bit chokes me up a little bit every time we go over what all of this means to certain people. And I believe even one of our commentators, actually, Joe Donahue, can share on that a little bit more as well.
Yeah, absolutely. So my father, his name is Dave. My father served in the United States Marine Corps when he graduated high school, and he's talked on behalf of some of his experiences in the military. So obviously, first off, thank you, Dad, for doing that for our nation, and for giving up yourself to do that is something that everybody who joins the military should be proud of, and we should be very grateful for. But he's talked on his behalf about experiences he's had and the friends he made, and absolutely the team mentality that comes out of being a part of the military is something that I see in him every day. And the motivation to work, the ability to just put your mind to something and do what is required of you is a skill that I've seen is very, very useful to these guys. But at the same time, the stress and the experiences they have are very rough and taxing on them. There are things that I've seen in my father that are not, that just like he won't talk about certain experiences he's had when he was in the military, just from, I guess it's the sake of PTSD. That's my assumption, is he doesn't want to remember things that happen. And he's had friends that have been shell shocked before. He's had friends who passed away and or that he's never seen again from the military. That it's just, you can see the taxation on a body, on a person, when they go through the things that they do in the military. And while at the same time as maybe sure the military is something you need, we need to be able to respect that these guys go through a lot. These guys and girls, when they come back, it's hard for them to adapt back into a regular society. And for Operation Motorsports to give these guys a chance to build on a team, something that they learn when they're in the military is the team mentality. And as you see, our race leader actually came into the pits there. But just to wrap this up quickly, it's a really great thing to see. And obviously they know what they're doing, that they can build on some of the skills and things that people learn in the military to help them come back into society. We're lucky that our veterans come back and are as greatly accepted, and there are so many people out here willing to help them from time that has changed, and that has grown into how we treat our veterans, which is very good to see. And just so, from a personal standpoint, from a general standpoint, the things that Operation Motorsport does outside of, out in the real world, and giving these guys the chance to race online, is it's something that a lot of people who don't have military ties don't really understand or appreciate as much. And granted, we all should, and everybody gives the opportunity and gets the chance to do so. But this is just, it's very near and dear to a lot of veterans and their families, that these guys are out here willing to, guys and girls are out here willing to give all these veterans a chance.
Yeah, absolutely. Just to touch up on that, just to say how serious, just PTSD and stuff is. I actually had a family friend, one of my dad's friends from growing up and everything. He actually took his life from PTSD earlier this year. I believe it was February. So I mean, just to cap it off, this stuff it's serious. We think we have it tough, but these guys, men and women, go through a lot of things, and it's a serious thing. If you know somebody that goes through all that, make sure they know that that people are there for them, and and make sure they get help. It's serious, and we, as Andrew said, we want to get that mission 22 down to 21 and all the way down to 0, because it's tough to see, and we don't need to lose any more people than we already do.
And I hate to be the guy that kind of brings it back to the focus of the race, but you have seen that there have been some pit stops made. Some driver changes as well. Adam Poppenhaus has gotten into the number 718 in place of Chris Walsh. Dustin Burkhalter has gotten into the number 70 in place of Paul Lindsay. And all these teams going to make their pit stops here very momentarily. I believe we should see the rest of these drivers come in and get fuel and tires right here. Here comes our new race leader, BMW CCA Club Racing, Kurt Poulter, down to the pit lane, and he'll be coming in. And you see a long line of cars behind him as well. That's 4 right there. We should be expecting Whiplash Racing Aqua to come in as well. They got Whiplash Racing Purple not far behind. All of these guys should be coming into the pit lane momentarily. Actually, Whiplash Aqua stays on the racetrack. We'll see what Whiplash Purple does. Ooh, a bit of damage as well there for Whiplash Aqua. I wonder what has happened to David Levine, but while we watch these pit stops start to take place, we do want to step away for just a moment. We'll be back to recap these pit stops, but we'll step away for just a moment here and listen to a message from Operation Motorsport.
I found out about Operation Motorsports through the program I'm in with the military. They're helping me transition into civilian life, and this was a great way for me to take my passion and see what it's like on the high performance side. I'm here to pick up what I can learn from them so that I can use it with my future career as being an automotive mechanic. This is a great experience whether you're just a at-home kind of person working on your car, changing oils or stuff like that, or wanting to go into the high performance side. I'm loving how the team's taking me in and really showing me everything. It'll show you just about everything you need to know from the driver standpoint to the tire changing.
On average, 22 veterans from North America commit suicide every single day. That's one veteran for every second of this video.
Yeah, it's just because that one you can actually adjust the RP level, so you just gotta be like just a little bit of heat. It's just enough to like.
They shall not grow old, as we that are left grow old. Age shall not weary them, nor the years condemn them. At the going down of the sun, and in the morning, we will remember them. We will remember them.
We welcome you back, of course, to Sebring International Raceway. Didn't really go anywhere. You still saw everything that was happening, but we stepped aside for that moment. We are back from that little break, and we saw all the pit stops play out, and a brand new race leader, not brand new necessarily, they actually led for portions of the race prior, but a new driver behind the wheel of the number 44 BMW CCA iRacing machine, and this actually is, I'm going to find on my entry list here, in the number 44, this is now Matt Kalish in place of Kurt Poulter, and you see everybody else. They came in, they made their pit stops. Both Whiplash Machines, we saw Resilience Racing Esport, and everybody else come in and make their pit stops, and everybody else heading back out onto the racetrack, of course, making those driver changes. Because, again, these cars can go just about 90 minutes on a tank, so why wouldn't you go right to 90 minutes, make your driver swap, and then head back out for the next 90 minutes. That should carry you right to 3 hours a lap. So it seems like there's a lap or so, maybe even 2 laps difference that you can make in your pit stop. You can come in right on the mark. You can come in, undercut a little bit. You can run a little bit longer, just like Trevor Anderson did in the number 77 Whiplash Racing Aqua Machine. Now, Michael Della Sala to the helm of the 77. He's got one Dustin Burkhalter. Remember, he was just so good in the open category, the open champion in the Operation eMotorsport iRacing League, and now he is all over the back end of that number 77. However, our normal race leader, the 718 machine, Adam Poppenhaus and Chris Walsh, they've had some kind of problem. We don't know exactly the specifics of it, as now Team Crash comes down the pit lane. Chris Bailey bringing that number 10 down to the safety of his crew, but the Resilience Racing Esport and AOA Racing entry of Adam Poppenhaus and Chris Walsh, big problems for them. They have fallen to 11th position. It looks like they've lost around about a minute and 30 seconds or so. Huge losses for them. And again, we don't know the specifics of the problem, but big problems for their number 718.
Yeah, not an ideal situation for them at all, but if anything that we've seen come from that car is that these guys definitely have pace, so I expect to see them coming up through the field slowly but surely, and hopefully by the next pit stop, for their sake, that they'll be back up to the front and hopefully be able to have that strategy play into a factor to where they can get back up into the lead.
Yeah, absolutely. The pit stops make the order shake up a lot, and it could certainly play out and fan out for them. But yeah, like Andrew said, it's just a long time on pit lane. Certainly, there was more than likely some sort of error or miscue going on in the pits, which is not the type of thing you need in a race. But at the same time, 4 hours and 20 minutes left is plenty of time to make up 2 minutes on track, which almost a lap, and being a lap down is certainly not what you need. That's a big hindrance to fall 1 lap down in any form, but there's still plenty of time left in this race, and we know that 718 car is really fast, so I wouldn't be surprised if that number slowly ticks off over the course of the next hour or two through this run.
On board with Really Slow Motion Racing's P. Balasa. I actually need to prep myself on the first name there. Again, working off of the entry list that we were provided. He's going to make a pass here. This is why we came to this battle. This is with Swarm Racing 2 and R. Campbell. I'm sorry that I don't have the names. There's actually, we've left that battle. We'll go right back to it. This is very important. This is for 11th place on the racetrack. As actually, I need to find myself. No, this is for 9th place. 9th and 10th, as now Balasa comes down to the pit lane. So got a little mixed up right there. Trying to follow these guys sometimes is a chore. But really slow motion racing, rather, going to come down to the pit lane, give up that spot that they had just earned to get by Swarm Racing 2, and now there goes Adam Poppenhaus, and actually he's got Sean Knight right in behind him. This is a great battle actually now for 10th and 11th place, and this could really go somewhere. Suddenly, the 718 put back on their heels and could be dropping out of the top 10 once more. They've just got back into the top 10. You see them on the left side on your ticker. The 718 back into 10th place. But if there's anything Shane Hunter and Sean Knight can do about it, that 718 is going to drop back into 11th.
Yeah, just checking up lap times. They are absolutely flying right now, trying to get up to that 10th spot, trying to work their way up through the field. And if they're going to do anything about it, they're going to surge by them. Looks like further on back. Looks like one of those EWRL machines went off track along with Lestock Racing, but they kept that going. But looks like they're going to keep trying to run down that 718. Looks like he's pulled a little bit of a gap. So they still got plenty of time to get back up to him, try to get into that top 10 spot.
Absolutely, and I think that even if they can't make that pass on the number 718 car, which we know is very fast, being able to follow his line through these corners, draft off of him on the straightaways. You talked about how much larger the BMWs are than the Porsches in terms of frontal surface area, so obviously the draft is very important for the Beamers and much more important than the Porsche itself. But if you know that the car in front of you is very fast, even if you're not quite able to make that pass, which certainly they're going to try to do in that number 927, you can follow his line, use his draft, catch up. Maybe as the 718 puts down good lap times and starts to move back up in the order themselves, you can kind of follow them through and make up positions like that too. So even for the 927, even for SNS Motorsports, maybe not to make the pass on the 718, I think it's very crucial for them to stick with that Porsche and try to follow him through, try to run the same line and catch up to the cars in front, because they might be able to move up in that regard.
So we're getting down to the nitty-gritty of hour number 2, and of course, as I mentioned earlier, we'll be switching production teams. Joe will be sticking with it. Trey Shuttlesworth on our social media pages will be sticking with it, but we'll be bringing in Emerson Arden on production and lead commentary. Noah Carmichael will be joining the booth, so that's going to be a great change of pace for everybody to not listen to my voice anymore, but we'll be changing things up here momentarily. If you're just joining us, well, it's a shame that you haven't been here already. It's actually the Whiplash cars. Ooh, guys, please don't give me a heart attack up here. Langenberg and De La Salle very, very close to one another. They are trying to get by the Rocket Surgeon Racing Machine and Dustin Burkhalter. I think you hear my landscaper in the background as well. He is hard at work. Don't know why he's here on a Sunday morning, but hey, we are getting the lawn cut, it sounds like. And the Rocket Surgeon Racing number 70. This 70 car made inroads on every gap ahead of them there right before the pit stop. And man, Paul was so quick. Paul Lindsay was so quick at this number 70 right before they pitted. Dustin Burkhalter pretty quick as well, but they have not shaken the Whiplash duo, if you will. It takes two to tango, and right now they are bringing the dance to Dustin Burkhalter.
Absolutely. They haven't let him pull away too far yet. But, even talking about the 70 car, we mentioned that incident, right before we went green, and they are up in 4th place. That just shows, don't let that, we've said it and we'll keep saying it. Don't let one incident count you out from the race. And that right there is just showing the patience and attrition. As we're going to see, looks like Trevor's going to make the spot there on De La Salle. Or Tyler, I'm sorry, on Michael. So he's going to make that pass for 5th. And he's going to surge ahead and try and run down that 70 machine of Rocket Surgeon Race.
Yeah, and Trey mentioned the incident before the race started for the number 70 team, and I know we've talked on this from the Bluegrass iRacing series, from USRA. We've talked about perseverance and overcoming stuff like that unfolds in a race, and we've talked about the motivation that you find when you make a mistake or you have an obstacle to overcome like that. Certainly gives you a lot of motivation to push on, hit your marks, and focus on the task at hand. And for Rocket Surgeon Racing to have not only rebounded, but also impressed as much as they have. I know we've talked about them already in this broadcast as a favorite to start moving up to the front over the course of the next 4 hours and 14 minutes of this event. So obviously that is a setback when you have an incident, and at the start of the race is a tough one to forget about. But at the same time, when you make a mistake at the start of the race, all it does is really give you a motivator throughout the entire event to push on and hit your marks and focus. And obviously that's what's paying off for the number 70 team right now.
Absolutely. Dustin Burkhalter continuing Paul Lindsay's amazing work behind the wheel of the number 70. And actually, they are very, well, no, I was going to say very close. Actually, I was reading things incorrectly because Swarm Racing the third is very close to Fish and Sim Racing. This is suddenly a battle between the 5 and 20 once more, just different drivers at each of the helms. So the battle for second very much alive. It's a 10-second gap between first and second place, though. So BMW CCA Club Racing very much out to lunch. There's some battles throughout the field further on back as actually, it seems, as we've had a problem for Michael De La Salle. It looks like we've just had an off here for the number 77. I'll see if we can find out what has happened. All I know is suddenly he's very far behind, not where he should have been. So we'll try and find what has happened here to Michael. And it might just be a difference in pace right now. The 77 certainly off pace and actually down the pit lane. So I dare say a penalty possibly at hand, maybe even a damage black flag. I don't really know, but certainly big problems here for Michael De La Salle and Whiplash Racing Aqua. I don't think we're going to see a change, of course, at driver position, but big problems for Whiplash.
Yeah, not something you really want to see, at all. But, like we said earlier, don't let something like that, get you down. As we see, we got 4 hours and 12 minutes left in the session. He's got plenty of time to make up the ground. Michael's got pretty good pace right now, so he's just got to keep that going and get that chip off his shoulder and brush it off and keep going and do what he's here to do, and that's to try and get up and get a win.
Absolutely, Michael De La Salle driving that car, and yeah, it's all about motivation. It's all about overcoming that sort of stuff. When you have a long race, you're going to have issues. You're gonna probably run into some sort of issue, but the big factor is whether you can overcome that issue and put it behind you and focus on the task at hand. That's a crucial part of a long race, and that's what keeps teams up at the front. We talked about that with the 718 car. We talked about that with the 70 car. Big cars that have proved that they're fast in this race so far. It's almost as crucial, if not more, than speed, is just to be able to overcome that kind of stuff and continue racing on like we're seeing everybody do right now.
Want to remind everybody that there's a battle within the battle here, and throughout the Operation eMotorsport iRacing League regular season, of course, we had battles throughout because we had 3 different classes within the same class of Miatas. Now, the difference here is that you see the yellow. The yellow number box, number plate rather, the yellow end plates on the wings, the yellow mirrors, the yellow banner on this number 44. If we go to the 5 car, you see the same thing, yellow all over it, yellow, denoting that these cars are open race cars. They're running in the open class. If we go back to, let's see, I've got to find it again. Here we go, Resilience Racing Esports 1. This is a pro/beneficiary entry. Now, I believe they are also the leader in that category. What that means is they've got 1 pro and 1 beneficiary in their car. In fact, the number 7 entry, isn't it, right? Yeah, has John Winker, Hunter Reeve, and Evan Smith. And Evan Smith, I believe, is currently in the car, no? Yes, Evan Smith currently in the car. Hunter Reeves started the car. We'll see John Winker in probably about 80 minutes time. And just as we had the pro, beneficiary, and open classes in the normal league, we have the open/pro/beneficiary. So just a little bit extra to keep track of. It might be a little bit confusing over the course of the race, but we'll do our best to keep everybody up to tabs on those battles. So really, for the most part, there's only, I think, 4 or 5 pro/beneficiary entries, so we don't have to worry about that battle too much. It's mostly just checking in on the race leader as we're doing now in each category. And right now, it's Resilience Racing Esports number 1. They are doing a great job of just keeping their nose clean and working up some spots. They're 6th overall, as you can see on the left side of your ticker. So, before we go any further, again, here in just a few moments, about 5 minutes, we'll be switching coverage, and we'll be going to part 2 of our iRace of Remembrance coverage. That means that myself and Trey Patton will be signing off for a little while. Joe Donahue will join Emerson Arden and Noah Carmichael in the booth. What that means is, again, don't worry, when the stream cuts out here in about 5 minutes' time, all you have to do is actually, I believe Jason Lynch was as kind as to provide the link over on the YouTube chat on the Operation Motorsport YouTube channel, so you can just go straight to that link. When our coverage here cuts out, that'll have part 2, or you can go to the channel itself via Operation Motorsport or Pit Stop TV to join in on that second portion of coverage.
Yeah, make sure I was hitting the. I'm not sure what was going on there, but yeah, make sure you don't go anywhere. Make sure to tune back in. Looking further back, we're looking. Looks like Fish and Sim Racing had almost had a little bit of an off track. Went way wide into a corner and kind of lost a little bit of any run he had going for that second spot. But nonetheless, he is back on the track, or kept it going rather. And kept going, so he is, falling back. Lost about a second worth of time on Swarm Racing 3. So he is going to try and remake up that ground. Excuse me, words are kind of difficult at the moment. But looking back, you saw the 70 that we mentioned earlier, about 47 seconds back behind Fish and Sim Racing. They are still under attack from Whiplash Purple, and then Resilience Esports 1 behind them. And then, as we mentioned before, BMW kind of just in their own zip code.
Yeah, absolutely. The BMWs have been very strong, and you talk about the Fish and Racing car that we're watching on screen right now. Yes, this car has proven it's got some speed, and overall the BMWs have obviously shown that through this event so far, about 2 hours into the event. But we're looking at the Fission Racing car, and this car's been very fast over the course of what we've seen so far, or at least what I've seen so far. A couple miscues isn't going to kill you, but it's certainly gonna hinder that.
And so we will step away from the mics. We will facilitate that change in coverage. Before we go, though, I quickly want to thank all of our partners here, Operation E-Motorsport, Recaro, of course, presenting the entire Operation E-Motorsport iRacing League, Redcom as well, Mobile One for stepping in and supporting. Man, it has been a great ride through all 8 races of that coverage, and now adding the iRace of Remembrance. Whether it's on the track or iRacing, Recaro Automotive is all about making driving feel safer, more comfortable, and more controlled. A driving experience that you can truly feel. Redcom products help protect lives. Redcom products are installed in the highest levels of government, and some of the most important conversations in the world are held on Redcom equipment. And of course, since day one, Mobile One, advanced synthetic motor oils have been a part of every Corvette racing win. That tradition continues with the mid-engine Corvette C8R, and with that, we will end our first portion of coverage here from the iRace of Remembrance. Stand by. We'll be switching over to our second portion of streams. Do not go anywhere. We'll be right back to you here from Pit Stop TV.